What if I told you that the happiest day of a Roman woman's life was also the night she prayed would never come? The wedding bells rang, the crowd cheered, and gold dust rained from balconies, but behind that celebration hid a ritual so cruel, so haunting, that even Rome tried to erase it from its history, because on her wedding night, a Roman bride didn't belong to her husband, not yet. Before she could be called a wife, she had to face an ancient ritual of purification, one that tested her purity, obedience, and fear of the gods. A ritual whispered about by women, guarded by priests, and silenced by law. They said the gods demanded it. They said Rome's power depended on it. But no one ever told the brides what they were truly sacrificing. Tell me, where are you watching this from? Your room, your bed, or somewhere dark where secrets still breathe? Because tonight, you're not just hearing history, you're stepping into a room Rome tried to seal forever. And once you know what really happened behind those golden doors, you'll never see the word marriage the same way again. So if you're ready to uncover the ritual that terrified brides and shamed an empire, hit subscribe and let's begin. Roman weddings were designed to dazzle, impress, and overwhelm. Streets were decorated with garlands, the aroma of roses and incense filled the air, and the music of flutes and lyres echoed through the city. Noble families wore robes of gold and crimson, the kind of colors that shouted wealth, power, and divine favor. The bride, veiled in orange and white, walked with trembling steps toward a life she had almost no say in shaping. To the outside world, it was pure beauty. To the bride, it was fear disguised as celebration. Because in Rome, marriage wasn't about love, it was about power, inheritance, and control. The bride was transferred from her father's house to her husband's, a living symbol of alliance and obedience. Every smile she gave, every nod she offered, was rehearsed. Every cheer from the crowd masked the truth she dared not speak. Even the smallest details carried meaning. The fire in the hearth symbolized loyalty. The bread shared between the couple represented surrender. The wedding veil was not just ornamentation, it marked the moment her body and fate became property, first to the gods and then to her husband. And yet, the crowd was oblivious. They celebrated purity, devotion, and divine blessing, unaware that these rituals were tools of control, carefully designed to keep women obedient and silent. Behind the music and laughter, Rome hid the beginning of something far darker, a night that would test her in ways no song or dance could soften. As night fell and the crowd dispersed, the grand ceremony gave way to secrets whispered in shadows. Senior women in the household, mothers, aunts, priestesses, gathered the bride and spoke of oaths she must never break. Every word was designed to instill obedience and fear. Speak out of turn, and the gods would curse your womb. Disobey a command, and madness or illness might follow. Religion masked control as devotion. The priests spoke of Venus and Juno, of divine order and sacred purity. But these warnings were not spiritual alone, they were tools of domination. Women were trained to fear punishment more than they were taught to love or trust. Even everyday actions were governed by superstition. The bride could not cross a threshold without permission. She could not meet the moon alone. She could not utter certain names, lest the gods turn against her. Her body, mind, and even her movements were under scrutiny, measured against invisible laws of obedience. And then there was the bridal bed, not a place for intimacy, but an altar of fear. Every step she took, every breath she drew, carried a meaning imposed by generations of patriarchal control. She had been taught that her body was property, her obedience a sacred offering. The veil that covered her face now felt heavier than silk. It was no protection, it was a symbol of the blindness Rome demanded. And behind the veil lay the truth. The ceremony never told her. The bridal night would be more than fear, it would be a test of survival. Once the candles were extinguished and the guests gone, the ritual's darkest moment began. The bridal night, shrouded in silence and secrecy. Rome never spoke openly about it, and few surviving texts dare to mention it at all. Yet from whispers and fragments, a chilling truth emerges. This night was not about love, union, or intimacy. It was about proof. The bride's purity was tested, sheets were checked, omens were read. The family and priest watched for signs that she had fulfilled her sacred duty. In some households, a priest even stood guard outside the chamber, ensuring the ritual was carried out exactly as the ancestors demanded. Failure was not an option. If the bride resisted, stumbled, or showed weakness, she bore the blame. Obedience was her shield, silence her only ally. The ritual transformed fear into sacred duty, pain into tradition, and violation into the unquestioned law of Rome. And yet, for the empire, it served a purpose beyond control. It was reassurance that the family line was secure, that the household gods were appeased, that Rome's social order remained unchallenged. Behind every torchlit wedding, behind every carefully arranged chant, there was a chilling message. Power did not reside only in Rome's armies and politics. It resided in the ability to dominate even the human spirit. By dawn, the bride was changed. Her public life resumed with smiles, rituals and duties, but the secret of the bridal night remained locked behind closed doors, a terror Rome hoped would never see daylight. As the sun set behind the Roman hills, the celebration faded into uneasy quiet. The torches flickered, the music dimmed, and the laughter of guests turned into distant echoes. Inside the home, the bride sat alone, her veil heavy, her hands trembling. She had been told that this was the most sacred night of her life, but every woman she met avoided her eyes. The elder women helped her bathe in perfumed oils, murmuring blessings that sounded more like warnings. They said the gods were watching, that Juno, the goddess of marriage, demanded purity, and that disobedience could curse her family forever. Yet their voices quivered with something unspoken, as if they knew what was coming. Some brides were told legends of ancient priestesses who screamed when the gods tested them, of omens that turned blood into prophecy. Others heard whispers that the ritual was more than symbolic, that it was meant to break fear, to prove loyalty, to mark the woman as property. Every movement had purpose. The way her hair was tied, the oil rubbed onto her skin, even the path she took to the chamber, all dictated by ritual law. She wasn't entering her husband's home that night. She was entering a test Rome had written long before she was born, and when the final door closed and the torches dimmed, she knew the gods were not kind witnesses, they were judges. This part of the ritual was never meant to be remembered. Rome's records are silent, but fragments from poets and priests tell a story buried between their lines. The bridal night was not only between husband and wife, it was a public secret, a performance for the gods. The bride was expected to offer herself with humility, not desire. The act was not her choice, it was duty. The husband's role was to fulfill a sacred obligation, to claim what the gods had blessed. In some noble houses, the ritual began with a priest's prayer. The husband would touch the household fire, swear an oath, and then the bride was led inside the bridal chamber, trembling, voiceless. Outside, servants waited for signs that the ritual had succeeded. Sheets were later inspected, candles were lit in the temple, and sacrifices were made to thank the gods for accepting her. It was not romance, it was proof. Proof that the bride was pure, proof that the union was sanctioned, proof that the empire's laws of purity still held power. And if the ritual did not go as expected, if the signs were inauspicious, blame fell upon her. She would be seen as cursed, impure, or unworthy. The shame would follow her forever. Behind closed doors, the empire's cruelty hid behind the words, sacred duty. But to the woman forced to endure it, it was fear made flesh. When dawn came, the city woke to celebration once more. The bride and groom appeared before the household altar, smiling, offering prayers. To the guests, everything seemed perfect. To Rome, another divine union had been sealed, but for the woman, the night's memory stayed carved into her soul. She had fulfilled her duty, but her voice had been taken. She was now a wife, obedient, silent, respectable. The empire didn't care about her feelings, it cared about her purity, her children, her silence. Over time, she learned to hide her fear behind smiles. To the world, she was honored. To herself, she was haunted. The ritual wasn't a single night, it was the beginning of lifelong obedience. And when she bore her first child, the elders said, "The gods are pleased," but no one asked if she was. No one ever would. Generations later, Rome would try to erase these practices, rewriting rituals, burning records, pretending it was all a myth, but the truth survived in fragments, in the trembling lines of forgotten poems, in the art that showed brides looking down, not up, and in the quiet warnings whispered from mother to daughter. The night of fear was never forgotten, it was only buried, because some rituals don't die with time, they just learn how to hide. The bridal night was not an isolated horror, it was part of a larger Roman obsession with blood and purity. Rome believed that the gods demanded perfection, that the continuity of the empire depended on controlling not just armies or senators, but the bodies and obedience of its citizens. In this culture, women were vessels of divine order. Their virginity, their ability to obey, and even the timing of their menstruation were monitored through rituals, prayers, and superstition. Families obsessed over lineage, purity, and the symbolism of blood. The smallest deviation could be interpreted as a curse, an omen that threatened both the family and the empire. Slaves, too, were not exempt. Their obedience was enforced by fear, punishment, and ritualized humiliation. Blood, whether spilled in sacrifice, punishment, or ceremonial inspection, became the currency of order, proof that the gods had approved, and a signal that defiance would not be tolerated. Art, poetry, and ceremonial records all show a disturbing pattern. The empire's obsession with blood wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. A woman's first night, a family's oath, a slave's obedience. All these became part of Rome's meticulous system for maintaining control. The empire's strength did not lie in its legions alone. It lay in the fear it instilled, in the rituals that taught obedience, in the unspoken rule that to survive was to submit. For Rome's rulers, the ritual was more than religious tradition, it was political strategy. Every household that adhered to these customs reinforced the idea that authority was absolute, divine, and unquestionable. The empire didn't just conquer lands, it conquered minds, and rituals like the bridal night were tools to maintain hierarchy. Emperors and senators often defended these practices under the guise of morality and divine law. They argued that purity ensured loyalty, that obedience ensured stability, and that silence ensured order. By keeping women, slaves, and lower-class citizens in fear, the empire maintained control over both family and state. Even the punishment for defiance was political. A bride who failed the ritual, or a servant who disobeyed, was not only shamed, her failure became a lesson to everyone watching. Fear spread through the household and across the city, silently reinforcing Rome's dominance. The bridal night, therefore, was not just about marriage, it was about showing that Rome's power extended into the most intimate, sacred spaces of life. To resist was unthinkable, to submit was survival. Despite the empire's attempts to normalize these horrors, some voices quietly resisted. Hidden in scrolls, poetry, and oral tradition are whispers of women and men who questioned the practice. Some questioned the morality of proving purity through fear, others challenged the priest's authority, exposing hypocrisy. But rebellion came at a high cost. Women who spoke out risked exile, shaming, or worse. Families could lose status, servants could lose their lives. Yet the courage of these voices ensured that the truth survived. Fragments hidden in art, cryptic writings, and cautionary tales passed from mother to daughter. These whispers remind us that even in the darkest societies, human conscience persists. Rome tried to erase history, but fear could not erase memory. The legacy of these rituals still echoes in literature, in stories of oppression, and in the knowledge that power is often maintained through fear rather than justice. By understanding these truths, we see that the story of the bridal night was not only a story of fear, but a story of the empire itself, its obsession with order, its ruthless enforcement of control, and the hidden cost paid by women and families alike. Rome was a civilization obsessed with image. While it proudly displayed statues, temples, and triumphs, it was equally skilled at hiding its shameful truths. The bridal night ritual, as horrifying as it was, didn't vanish, it was actively erased. Records were burned, texts rewritten, and historians instructed to glorify marriage while omitting the fear, pain, and coercion that had accompanied it. Political leaders understood that acknowledging the ritual would tarnish the empire's moral authority. Publicly, Rome portrayed women as honored wives, participating in sacred unions under the protection of gods. Privately, the same women endured fear, silence, and ritualized control. Any attempt to record the truth risked censorship, exile, or worse. Poets, chroniclers, and philosophers were often forced to rewrite history. Verses that might hint at cruelty were edited or destroyed. Scrolls that exposed ritualized oppression were considered dangerous, unfit for public consumption. In essence, Rome created a parallel reality, one where weddings were joyous, marriages divine, and obedience voluntary. While the true horrors lived only in whispers, even popular myths were rewritten to reflect sanitized ideals of virtue and purity. Tales that could inspire doubt, rebellion, or sympathy for the brides were recast as moral lessons or divine narratives, masking the cruelty beneath layers of legend. Through these measures, Rome tried to control not only bodies and obedience, but also memory itself, ensuring that future generations would inherit the illusion of moral order. Despite Rome's deliberate erasure, traces of the truth survived, hidden in art, inscriptions, and secret references in scrolls. Sculptures sometimes show brides with downward gazes or veiled expressions, their subtle gestures suggesting anxiety rather than celebration. Temples contain votive offerings dedicated to Juno and Venus that hint at fear, ritual, and obedience rather than love or union. Hidden in poetry and myth are faint acknowledgments of the bridal night. Some lines speak of women trembling, of rituals performed under watchful eyes, of fear cloaked in devotion. These fragments reveal that not all participants accepted the sanitized narrative. Some found ways to encode reality within allegory, metaphor, and careful word choice. Even private letters and diaries, rare as they are, whisper the same truths. Women wrote of dread, of the impossibility of speaking, and of survival through obedience. These tiny records defied Rome's attempts to control history, preserving a hidden testament to courage, resilience, and memory. In essence, the story of the bridal night didn't disappear. It became a puzzle, scattered pieces waiting for centuries to be pieced together. Every whisper, every trace, every hidden line of poetry tells us that Rome's glory came at a cost few historians dared to record. The erasure of the bridal night ritual teaches a chilling lesson. Power can control not only people but also memory. By silencing voices and rewriting history, Rome ensured that the suffering of countless women would remain invisible to most. Yet fragments survived, proving that fear, oppression, and courage cannot be completely buried. This story resonates beyond ancient Rome. It reminds us that institutions often hide inconvenient truths, sanitize horrors, and glorify obedience while punishing dissent. The women who endured the bridal night left a legacy of resilience, teaching that even in silence, memory survives. Today, scholars, historians, and storytellers continue to uncover these hidden truths. By examining fragments, challenging sanitized narratives, and listening to the whispers of the past, we confront not only ancient cruelty, but also the mechanisms of control that persist in societies across time. The legacy of Rome's rituals is haunting because it is familiar: fear disguised as duty, obedience demanded under the guise of morality, and the silencing of those who might reveal the truth. Yet it also offers hope. Even when an empire tries to erase memory, courage, and survival leave traces, the truth can never be fully buried. It waits for those willing to uncover it. In the end, the bridal night of ancient Rome is more than a dark story of fear and ritual. It is a testament to the enduring human spirit and a warning about the price of silence. History, no matter how carefully hidden, always finds a way to speak.